Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 37th edition of the International Documentary Film Festival Munich. We're here at DOK.fest screening and studio talk with team members of the feature-length documentary, The Territory, which is having its German premiere at the DOK.fest mention. The Territory is a complex and multi-layered account of the struggle over the Amazon rainforest and the existential threat the indigenous people of the Uru-eu-wau-wau are facing. I'm Rand Beiruty. I'm a Jordanian-Palestinian director and producer, and it's a pleasure to be here with two members of the film crew. We have Tangai, cinematographer of The Territory, and Alex Pritz, the director, producer, co-producer, cinematographer, and co-editor of the film. Would you like to say something to introduce yourself? Tangai, maybe we can start with you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tangai Uru-eu-wau-wau from the Uru-eu-wau-wau people. And I'm very happy to be part of this team and of the cinematography team. We have seen a lot of progress in terms of learning about technology and using it to defend our territory. And we'll talk about the film in more detail later. So that's just my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex?
Yes. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having us. We're really excited to be able to screen the film in Germany and really excited to be able to talk about the way that we made the film, because I think it was made with a lot of love. It was made with a really big team and in a really collaborative way. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about with this project. Yeah.
So the film was shot over a period of 3 years. And what clearly sets it apart, other than the compelling film participants and outstanding craft, is the intimate access that allows the viewer a first-hand account of events as they unfold on screen. Before we get into the process of making the film, I would like to ask first you, Alex, about your initial impulse and motivation to pursue this idea.
Yeah, this story for me began through Nadinha Bandeira, the environmental activist who's a major part of the film. I've been watching the Brazilian political situation, and as Bolsonaro was gaining power in the election campaign period, looked at Nadinha's work, who I really admired and felt inspired by, and said, okay, what's going to happen to this person's ability to continue to protect the forest if this person's elected? Her budgets are going to be cut, her hands are going to be tied. And so I began a conversation with Nadinha about her work and her life and trying to start documenting it. And through Nadinha, was introduced to Tangai and the Uru-eu-wau community. And, obviously the project has grown a ton since then, but that was my initial entry point.
And what about you, Tangai? Could you tell us a bit about your first meeting with Alex? What was your motivation? What convinced you to join the team?
When I met Alex, I didn't speak English. So we had Gabriel with us, and Gabriel helped us translate and told us what was going on. And I think what really inspired me to get involved in audiovisual work was that I always wanted to do new things, learn new things, and experience new things. And I saw that filming and cinematography is really important. You can film what we're doing on a day-to-day basis with the Uru-eu-wau-wau, what we're doing to defend our territory. And in addition to that, we decided to set up a group. This group shows not what we're doing, not just for Brazilians, but shows it to others throughout the world. We noticed that we were doing our work and nothing improved. There were people that were encouraging us to film. But we realized it's not good to show this only in Brazil. We needed more partnerships. We needed people to see that our struggle is very important. The territory is a very serious problem. And we saw that other countries and people in other countries wanted to see this film. We talked to Nadinha, we talked to Alex, and we talked about how to bring this and show this outside Brazil. And we had an idea, Alex had the idea, and we wanted more. Sadly, one of our members was murdered. Ari, Uru-eu-wau-wau, was murdered. And we saw that we weren't getting the results we were hoping for. And that's why we decided to share it, so that the whole world could see it. And we hope by doing that, we'll be able to address the problems, because we weren't making any progress here. Sadly, in the Brazilian courts, we weren't able to find justice. So that's the main idea behind the film. We're frustrated, we're sad, we're worried. The Brazilian government continues to encourage land grabbing and illegal mining, incurring and pushing into the Yanomami lands and other indigenous peoples' lands because of mining. So we're sad. We're very sad. Right now, I am here. I don't want to just talk. I don't want it to be just blah, blah, blah. We want to find solutions. I don't know what they are. Perhaps we can find an agency that will help defend us and defends the cause, and that we will be able to find justice for the indigenous people and for something greater. We need to find a way to solve this and to find justice. That's what we're hoping for. I didn't want to just sit back. We're tired. We're tired of just sitting back and waiting. We miss our colleague, Ari. He was so happy. He was so fun. And charges were pressed to defend the land. And it's something that inspires us in our struggle when we think about him and remember him. We can't forget this. We can't pretend like nothing has happened. We want to address this problem. We want justice. So I want to contribute to that. I want what I say to mean something and bring about justice. I wanted to serve as a criticism and help us solve the problem. So that was my inspiration.
I think that's very touching, and what the film managed to do. Like, I personally, towards the end, I was filled with hope because of the power of community, the power of taking hold of one's own narrative. I was like, I was very excited about what was happening, but then again, I thought premature catharsis can be somehow counterproductive. And the titles at the end of the film brought me back to reality that the attacks on your community, Tangai, had doubled in 2001, 2021. And that the deforestation is at its highest rates in 15 years, and that there was no justice for the murder of Ari, which is, somehow the reality seems bleak, and justice was willfully ignored by governmental officials. And I mean, I wanted to keep this political situation talk towards the end, but with the presidential elections coming up this October, do you have any hope that a bigger systematic change can be achieved? And I mean, this is related to what you said about the impact of the film. And I know that the team's working on an impact campaign. That's also, I'd be very interested to hear if you already sense some alliances forming. Can you tell us about that?
Eu acho que em questão das eleições, a gente...
Elections. We don't have high hopes, actually. Politicians always come and they promise, and then they disappear. So we don't expect much from them. We don't expect anything good. We know. We've experienced so much. So many terrible things. We have support from a minority, and that's how we survive. And the land where we are is what people really want. They're desirous of our land. It's coveted. But we're looking for someone who really defends indigenous people. Well, politicians, when they want to help, they want something in exchange, and that is not fair. We've seen this time and again. We've seen politicians come in and help, and then later they ask for something that we weren't expecting. So when politicians come and show up at the village, or sometimes when we go to the city, they're always promising something. We'll do this, I'll do that. And sometimes we believe it. What we truly expect and hope is that politicians could be sincere, honest, indigenous or not. We want honesty. And we want respect like any other citizen. That's what we need. It's not fair that I ask someone for support, but in exchange, I've got to give up some land or something else that's very important to me. But we don't really trust politicians. But hey, maybe there might be one. There might be one who truly wants to help, who doesn't want something in exchange. We have to think both negative. I mean, we have to think there's a negative side and a positive side. And so we have to think positively, I suppose. So I hope we can find someone like this. I hope that we can support those who support us. I don't want empty promises and empty words, but I think the situation is just sad. Everything feels lost. We're lost. We don't really have support in Brazil. And we don't really expect much from the Brazilian government. We've seen this throughout history. The Brazilian government doesn't really support us. We have support from the minority, but the minority doesn't have the power to revert this situation. We're fighting and we're struggling, protesting, and we're trying to turn things around. The only way to turn things around is seeking help, alliances, partnerships, and use social media to talk about and show what's happening and what we're feeling. The only way to change now and what's happening is technology. A lot of times we've seen some steps taken, a reversion of steps, things that were done. People take steps back. The government has taken steps back or hasn't done something negative because of the reverberation. And again, our focus is on our territory, on our struggle. So that is what I feel about politics and politicians.
What about the impact of the film? Maybe Alex, you want to say something, and Tangai later if you want to add.
Sure. For us, the idea that this film was going to be more than just a piece of entertainment or, even aspirationally a piece of art that people could look at, we wanted it to be able to do something in the world, to exist as a tool. And so one of the big things we're focused on now is working with Tangai and the media team there to build a multimedia and cultural center where they can continue to produce their own films and tell their own stories. Editing, software, computers, the works. And that'll be really exciting. At the same time, working on strategic closed door screenings around some pieces of legislation in the EU and the US. There's a bill coming through the EU later this year that would look at due diligence and deforestation related supply chains. A lot of the pressures on Tangai's land come from cattle that is being illegally grazed within their territory. And soy that then feeds that same cattle that come to Europe and the United States. So yeah, big multi-year impact efforts, but Tangai can talk more about it as well.
Então, em relação ao filme, para mim foi muito importante.
The film was very important to me. We were able to interview people and show what we're living, show what the Uru-eu-wau-wau lives and experiences. And we did that through film, and we did through this particular film, The Territory. The idea of bringing people in and of filming, of sharing and broadcasting what we're doing. This, for us, is a great tool, but we hope that something happens from it. We don't trust Brazilians. We don't trust that anything will happen in Brazil because things get shelved, things don't progress. So using this to look for other means might be helpful. We know that Brazilians are feeling pressured, but the pressure comes from outside. I see that in general. When I look at the film, it really portrays our lives, the Uru-eu-wau-wau people's lives. Alex mentioned this. I was in Europe last month. And a lot of people said they were unfamiliar with Brazilian life. The media often shows just the positive side of Brazil. But what about the indigenous people? Nobody ever hears about the indigenous people's struggles. Is their livelihood safe? Are they eating okay? Do they have food? Do they have territory? This part of our experience is relatively unknown in Europe, the rest of the world. That's sad. And then I've met a few Brazilian teens who had left Brazil when they were teenagers, and they were unfamiliar with what happens in our own country. The film is therefore an important tool because people had visual access to what the indigenous people experience and live. So it was good on one side. On one hand, it was good. But we haven't achieved justice. And that is our main point. We want results. So on the other hand, there's still a path that we need to tread. We need to work for us. We need the help of other colleagues and organizations. And we need to change what we're experiencing. So that's what we're fighting for right now. So when we look at the documentary, I wanted to reach lots of people. I saw lots of things in Europe that people were unfamiliar with us and what we do and how we live. We cry, we talk, we love. We bleed when we get cut just like any other human. But we're treated like wild animals because people are unfamiliar with how we live. Isn't that strange that we're not seen as humans? If I were a wild animal, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd have blood in my mouth because I'd be eating raw animal. I mean, that's what a wild animal does. No, we are people. We think collectively. We think just like everybody else. And in our struggles, we include all of Brazilian society, everyone. We, working with the rest of Brazilian society, can work collectively to seek justice. But the rest of Brazilian society doesn't work and help us. They want us to just live in our territory. But how can we live in our territory if we don't have it? If they destroy the trees and the water? So I don't understand how Brazilians have this mindset. They're doing away with our territory, but they're pushing us off into the territory and ignoring us as human beings. So we have to look outside so that we can have help within. That's what we're doing. If we were to depend on the Brazilian government or on the Brazilian justice system, we'd get nowhere. Money talks, as I see it. It's very easy to buy influence. And that's what people are going to do. And people are going to work on behalf of those who have the money or can pay. But we are the minority. We defend society as a general concept through territory, through the richness of territory, providing oxygen, water, a safe environment. But we know that we're facing climate change and incursions onto our land. I'm sorry, I talk a lot. I could go on for hours about this. That's the idea.
Thank you for sharing your feelings about the situation. And one thing that struck me in the film is this sense of entitlement that the farmers have. And I say struck me, even though this shouldn't come as a surprise. The violence and aggression against indigenous people and the environment is nothing new and is not specific to this right-wing government, but in fact, it's at the heart of all settler colonial thought. And contrary to what many people would like to believe, it is not a relic of the past. It's happening in many places in the world and is enraging. Alex, even though the films and the filmmaker's position is very clear, you chose to show the perspective of the farmers, the antagonists basically in the story. And I think that's like an objective way to say it. How did you gain their trust, and what were your intentions, and maybe the challenges for you?
Yeah, the impetus and motivation to like reach out to Sergio and the Association of Rio Bonito really came from early conversations with Bitate and Nadinia and the community about how we were going to structure this film, if we were going to tell this together. And there was a decent amount of kind of journalism fatigue, almost, you could say, from Bitate and Nadinia, who expressed a lot of the same things that Tangai just did, that, you know, we've tried the official channels. We've done these journalism trips where somebody comes for 2 weeks and we chaperone them and take, you know, a lot of time out of our very busy lives to go show them the deforestation sites and everything else. And they interview the indigenous leaders and the environmentalists, and nothing was really coming of it for them. And so they said, let's, you know, reach out to the people that are causing this destruction and committing these acts of violence, because, you know, we're not the ones causing the conflict here. They are, and so go talk to them, because they'll you know, speak to you as an American as well, that there's this kind of really disconcerting shared cultural history between Brazil and the United States as countries that were founded on this idea of settler colonialism and, you know, manifest destiny. All of these animating ideas of the country that I'm from as an American felt very similar to the ideological principles that drove Sergio and Martins to do the things that they did. And so reached out to them. It was, you know, they were very skeptical of the media, felt maligned by journalists as well in their own way. And so it was a really long, slow process of trying to demonstrate that what we were going to do would be a little bit different than the traditional journalism they experienced, that I would film them burning the forest, but I'd also film them, you know, digging a hole in the hot sun for 5 hours, and that to them, those were equally important parts of their lives, and that we were going to document all of it, and that everybody would speak for themselves, and there would be no narrator, you know, telling the audience how to think about things. And, you know, I think in the end, the film is a really accurate representation of what they believe and who they are. And so we feel good about the way that it came out.
And how was it for you, Tangai? Was there tension since you were part of the team?
Então, essa parte de entrevistar o colonizador, eu não tive...
Interviewing the farmers was interesting. I didn't have direct access because it was too risky to do a face-to-face interview. But through Alex, we were able to. They are willing to talk. And they critique the indigenous people. There's one guy who says, I don't remember who, he says, why do they have so much land? What they don't understand is that even though we're a small group, we have a very positive effect on the land. Because obviously we're not producing, we're not farming, but we're saving the planet. Our elders gave this legacy to us. They don't respect that. They think that land needs to be worked and it needs to be productive. No, our culture and our tradition says otherwise. Our ancestors grandmothers and grandfathers, they fought. We hear this from one generation to another generation. They pass this on. We have to keep the territory the size that it is, but it's hard. The elders are not waiting just for justice. We have to demarcate it. We have to fight for it. The Uru-eu-wau-wau specifically don't expect much out of the Brazilian government and justice. We feel like we're going to have to fight for ourselves. We can't depend on public authority and government authorities. And that's what our elders have said, that we're going to have to fight. I'm here representing our people. I've been talking to people. We don't sit back and just wait. Alex knows this. When there's something that we have to do, we go right up and we face it. We can't wait. Alex spent time with us. He saw us as we were doing our monitoring, our surveillance work. He filmed us. Perhaps he could talk a little bit about our day-to-day struggles, what we fight for. That would be great. We try and hold back. The elders want to take up arms and go up and fight, but we try to hold that back because we know that that's not going to get anywhere. And we know that if we go to the city there, we might be facing risks as well. We try to balance things. It's concerning. But I don't know, maybe Alex could talk a little bit more about what we do. We know that we can't go up and face people face to face because that is way too dangerous. But there are ways to get around it.
And as Betata said in the film, the Amazon is not just the heart of Brazil, but of the whole world. So this is an issue that concerns all of us. We have a couple of more minutes left. Alex, do you want to comment on what Tangai just said?
Sure. Yeah, I think if there's one thing that we hope audiences take away from this, it's that as we've heard from Tangai and his powerful message here today, Indigenous people need to be included in every conversation about climate change, full stop. There's no conversation that should be happening about climate change and the problems that societies like, mine and a lot of this audiences, I would imagine, have created. They can't exist without the Indigenous voice there in the center, leading us through this. And we should all humble ourselves to learn from them and, not think about how we can help Tangai so much as what Tangai is doing is helping all of us. And, the work that he is doing protecting his land is also stabilizing the climate for all of us, creating a world that, our children can live in 50 years from now. So I think that's a really important part of the story that I hope people are able to take from it.
Thank you very much for this talk. It was a pleasure being here with you virtually and hopefully to see you in Germany next time in person.
Yes. Thank you very much, too.
Have a good day.